There are currently 3 million people over the age of 80 in the UK. This will double by 2030 and reach 8 million by 2050. At a time when demand for care is rising, the number of people receiving social care is falling, as eligibility criteria and higher charges make services harder to access. Out of 2 million older people who need care, 800,000 receive no support. 24% of disabled people report cuts to their services, and the number of working-age adults with learning disabilities will rise by almost a third in the next 20 years. Local councils are predicting that without action, within 20 years, they will be unable to provide any services except adult social care and children's services. No libraries, no parks, no leisure centres, not even bin collection. There has also been a big impact on the number of people providing care to older or disabled friends and family members. In 2001, there were 5.8 million carers in the UK. Today, there are 6.4 million carers. That is 1 in 8 of the adult population in the UK. 3 million of those combine paid work with care. Over 1 million people care for over 50 hours a week. Between 2001 and 2011, the proportion of carers caring for more than 50 hours per week doubled. And over 1 million carers are over 65 years old. Each year, carers' contribution in unpaid care is worth £119 billion. This is more than the equivalent cost of a second NHS. And the number of carers will continue to rise. By 2037, 9 million people in the UK will be carers.
Family structures are changing and families are tending to live further apart now, which means that people aren't on hand just to pop in and check if mum and dad are doing okay.
Well, we know that life expectancy has soared really over the past few decades, and of course that's something to be celebrated, but it does create its own new set of demands, and so we've seen life expectancy increasing at the same time as family forms are changing. So there's an increased demand for care, but less supply of care from the direct family, so services clearly have to adapt accordingly.
Just as finding affordable childcare can be a real challenge if you're trying to stay at work and have someone look after your children, it's the same if you've got other caring responsibilities. You need trusted, affordable and good quality care so that you can carry on working and be reassured that the person that you look after is okay when you're not there.
When people talk about a sandwich generation, I guess it gives that impression of being squeezed between two different generations. So we all know about parents' responsibilities to their children, but an increasing phenomenon obviously with an ageing population is responsibility up generation as well. So when you've got caring going on both sides, that's when effectively you're sandwiched in the middle of those two sets of caring responsibilities and trying to juggle all of those caring responsibilities, often with a busy working life.
Karen and Steve met when they were students. They fell in love, got married and had 3 children, Josh, Mark and Amy. They lived in Bristol, just round the corner from Karen's mum, Betty, and she loved helping out with the children. Karen's brother, David, lived in Birmingham with his family and Betty would often drive up to visit them. Then Steve got a brilliant new job, so Karen, Steve and the family had to move to London. Karen got a job at the local supermarket and her mum, Betty, would pop down to visit every fortnight. Life was good. But then Betty started becoming frail and she was anxious about driving. She even began feeling anxious about taking the dog out. So now, instead of Betty driving to London to see Karen and the family, Karen and David tried to visit every weekend. They both kept in touch with each other and with a caring neighbour who kept an eye on Betty during the week. It wasn't easy. And then, Betty had a fall and broke her hip. She lay on the floor for 6 hours until her neighbour found her. She stayed in hospital for a while, but was desperate to get home. When Betty was discharged, Karen rearranged her shifts to go to Bristol 2 or 3 times a week to make sure Betty was all right. David's employer wasn't so understanding and wouldn't give him any time off work to help Karen support Betty. Meanwhile, Steve was trying to look after the kids and manage everything at work while Karen was away. Extra childcare and petrol costs meant money was tight. Karen and Steve just had to keep juggling until everything became too much and Karen had to give up work so they could manage.
Our work with Employers for Carers shows that supporting carers in the workplace is good for business, whether you're BT or Sainsbury's or a smaller organisation like the manufacturing firm Listerwood.
We have 20,000 carers working at Sainsbury's with us, and we know how difficult it is to juggle the home commitments and a really hectic and busy working life.
We find that working flexibly helps to provide a solution for our business that obviously retains a highly skilled workforce, whilst at the same time avoiding the costs of additional recruitment.
If you think of a large organisation like BT with 100,000 people, that means as many as 15,000 people in our workforce today have caring responsibilities.
We really want to recognise and show these colleagues who are carers that they're valued because they do a great job for us. And of course, because we work with the carers so closely, we make sure they're still able to come to work by giving them shifts that suit them. And that means that we get to keep some really great colleagues, so it makes sense for them and for our business.
Putting a support mechanism means that people aren't stressed. You don't incur the sick absence that often goes with that. Is very expensive for business, and also you're allowing people to perform at a high level because they're supported. You retain people who you would otherwise lose from your workforce, because believe me, when it comes to caring, people will always choose what's best for the person they're looking after. So if business can support them in the workplace, they will continue to care and continue to work. So retention is important. But also, as the economy grows and as business grows, we will need to attract people to work. If we don't have the flexibility, if we don't have the services, then what we're saying is up to 15% of the working population can never come and join us. That's got to be a massive gap in the talent pool if we're not able to reach out to them.
Well, I think the important thing is that we don't think all in terms of doom and gloom, and we don't see caring as some appalling burden that people take on unwillingly. Actually, family bonds are incredibly strong and enduring, and something that people enjoy and get their ultimate satisfaction from. What we've got to do is make sure we're putting the services around that recognise the reality of that, though, and make sure that they meet families in all their different types.
As Betty has grown older, she's become increasingly anxious about driving and even walking the dog. She gets some support, including preventative services like having someone to help her prepare meals, walk the dog, go out shopping and socialise, which all help Betty feel more confident and capable. Assistive technology such as telecare sensors monitor patterns in Betty's movements, and home adaptation reduce the risk of falls and help her stay mobile. Even with this support, Betty had a fall and broke her hip. Her emergency lifeline pendant alerted monitoring centres instantly, so she wasn't left lying on the floor. After Betty broke her hip, she was keen to leave hospital as soon as she could. A good hospital discharge plan agreed with Betty and the family helped Betty get back on her feet more quickly and safely, and gave the family advice and information on where to get support. Short-term, intensive support from social care services when Betty returned home helped her recover quicker and reduce the need for her daughter Karen and her son David to take time off work. And communication technology helped Karen, her husband Steve, her brother David and Betty's caring neighbour to keep in touch quickly and easily to discuss how Betty was doing. Steve's employer provides him with the technology and flexibility to work from home 2 days a week to manage childcare when Karen is at Betty's. David's employer also allows him to work flexibly, including remotely from Betty's home if he needs to. And thanks to remote consulting via the internet, Betty isn't constantly going backwards and forwards to medical appointments anymore, which means Karen and David can spend quality time with her when they go to Bristol, instead of being a taxi service to and from the doctors. Thanks to better designed, more personalised services and advances in technology, Betty feels healthier and happier, which means that Karen, Steve and David worry far less. Karen can stay and work, and they all lead less stressful lives, both at home and at work, resulting in a real work-life care balance.
We know from international evidence that other countries have recognised that the demographic challenge is actually an economic opportunity and know that care services can be an important engine for growth in the economy.
These care services can create a lot of employment, new jobs all around Europe. European institutions put forward that they can be created 5 to 10 million of jobs in Europe for the next 10 years. Secondly, they can be a creation of new companies, charities, NGOs, local authority services all around our countries, and so that is also an important impact on growth.
There are many business opportunities in the social care and care sector, and every community needs a well-constructed and flexible range of services. And that can be provided from individuals working at a very local level, as well as larger organisations who have lots of resources and can work across multiple locations to provide the right services for families.
Families need a wide variety of services to support them, from childcare, low-level domestic support, care at home and residential and nursing home care. But too often it's really difficult to get these services, particularly if you don't meet the eligibility criteria. It's difficult to find them, even if you can pay for the services yourself. But things can be done to overcome this. France, for example, they put together a national development programme which drove growth in home care services and domestic services, really stimulating the economy and, importantly, making sure that families could find the services at a price that they could afford and at a quality that they expected.
The headlines at the moment in press are often about the cost of care, who's going to pay for care. OK, that's a fair debate, but there is another side of the coin which government needs to consider, which is that care can be a stimulus to the economy. If we build care homes, as we're doing, we're creating jobs. We're creating local jobs. We're creating jobs for younger people. These are real value generators. A care home delivers care, but it gives wealth and value to the local economy.
So I think that technology presents a big opportunity for carers and their families because it can deliver benefit for them to live their life how they want, where they want, when they want. But also we think it's then an opportunity for the system in terms of how do you support them to do that in a way that maybe you could save costs in the future, but not to save costs, but to make lives better and maybe take efficiencies at the same time.
In the same way that technology has transformed our social lives, so it has the power to transform the way we care. It can provide services at a distance, it can help us juggle work with care, and it can create networks of support no matter how far you live from family and friends.
At the Technology Strategy Board, we've got a programme called the Assisted Living Innovation Platform. And what we're interested in there is how can we improve people's lives, but also how can we then position UK business to deliver those solutions, products, services. And what we're doing there is working with them so that they can invest in the UK, do the research and development in the UK to deliver products for the benefit of the UK from UK businesses. And what we'll see then is it's not just about making people's lives better, it's actually about doing some of that innovation, delivering those services, developing those products in the UK. And as the Technology Strategy Board, that's what we're really interested to see.
We need to take every opportunity to use technology as creatively as we can to respond to the demands of our busy lives. 1 in every 3 households in the UK has a Wii Fit. There is no reason why assistive technologies that help us to manage our care, work and community lives should not be just as common.
Caring is part and parcel of all our lives, and what we need and what all families need are services that help us to provide the care we want to provide, but also to carry on working and living our own lives. So we need those different services to join together. We need to realise the benefits that new technology can bring. And we need to recognise that the care sector is a driver for growth and job creation, not a drain on our society. It's vital that we take the opportunity now to bring together these services, the new technology and the opportunity for growth so that we can put in place a system that supports everyone who needs help and support and those that care for them.